I'm an Air Force Reserve logistics officer and just recently started my own business.
Thank you so much for sharing, Aaron. And now all of our panelists, if you would just turn your cameras on, that will allow for our viewers to be able to see you all's beautiful faces before we get into our panel. Perfect, thank you all. So the first portion of our panel this evening discusses COVID-19 and how it's impacted you all from your artistic endeavors. And the first question is, how has your artistic endeavors been impacted during the outbreak of the coronavirus this year? Dean, I see you've already unmuted. If you would like, you can go for it.
Cool. I'll say, so I had just signed with my manager this past February, my acting manager in New York. And so I signed with him in February. Everyone gets the notice that we're on lockdown in March. On that Thursday, I get an audition for a TV show. I have to be in New York on Friday. Then they say like everything's just shut down so I couldn't even go. So everything has been put on hold. And right now, Maryland is still on restrictions from even being in New York right now. Just because the COVID cases and just COVID in general has just skyrocketed. So that has put a little damper on the on-camera aspect, but it's actually opened up another door for me as far as doing voiceover work, which I really do enjoy. So, we just had to adapt.
Understood. I think all of us have had to adapt in so many different ways in our work. So I really appreciate your response. Thank you, Dean. Aaron, would you like to share how you have been impacted from your standpoint?
Sure. From my perspective, prior to COVID, it was really like a 9 to 5 schedule, kind of in a rat race with work, kind of gym. With COVID, I've been working from home since March, so I've had a lot more free time on my hands to explore different endeavors. One of which being starting my own small business. So I've been able to actually been on my end pretty beneficial in that I've been able to try everything that I've wanted to.
Well, that is great. I am so happy to hear that you have been able to turn this around. I know a lot of people have been now having so much more time to pursue some of the interests that they've had. So it's amazing to hear that you actually started your business during this difficult year. So thank you for sharing that. Ayanna, would you like to share your perspective?
Sure. So at the beginning of this year, I had actually solidified 3 recital, or actually 2 recitals with one particular organization in Philadelphia, and I think 2 or 3 recitals with Kappa, but they all got canceled due to COVID. And then I was also working as a teacher. I still am. So I was working from home. And as far as my performance career is concerned, there have been a lot of things put on hold, mainly because most performance halls, most venues are closed. So I'm not really able to like fully advocate for myself as an artist. But the silver lining in the pandemic is I've had a lot of time to really think about the kind of artist that I want to be. I've had a lot of time to prepare and really strategize for the future and really rethink how I'd like to present myself as an artist and what I want my career to look like going forward. So it's definitely been a challenge, artistically and financially, but at the same time, I'm grateful for the time that Kappa has presented, all of us.
Yes, I completely understand. It's so unfortunate that so many of us had so many wonderful opportunities this year that have now had to just kind of go on the back burner. But like you said, this has been a wonderful time to do some self-reflection and reconfiguring some things. So I'm happy to hear that you found that bit of hope through it all. Thank you for that. So Jamiah, would you like to share how you have been artistically impacted during this time of COVID?
Honestly, I feel like during COVID, opportunity definitely happened more in the face of adversity. Um, I can honestly say I've done more songwriting and I've done a lot more things with music during COVID than I have when COVID wasn't here, if that makes sense. You know, people beg to differ, and there are pros and cons to it because of, you know, social distancing and having to be home. Quarantine was a little bit difficult at the time, but it did not stop me from submitting writing and songs to artists who were in need of them. So I can honestly say that it hasn't really been halted. It just got a little bit more enhanced.
Thank you. I really appreciate your response. I'm really happy that a lot of opportunities have actually come out of this time. So I really appreciate you sharing that. I just want to pause right here. I know that we've had some technical challenges. I just heard that the video was not recording all of this time. So what I would like to do, if at all possible, is just to call you all's names and just if you can just share a little bit about yourself again, so now our viewers can catch this information before we continue to delve into the conversation. That would be very helpful. I apologize to the viewers and to you all for this inconvenience. And I'll just go ahead and start with Dean. If you could just share something about yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Dean Johnson. I am a musician. My concentration is piano. I am classically trained, but my focus all these years has been gospel, pop, and R&B. And also, I am an actor.
Thank you so much, Dean, for that. Now, if Ayanna can introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ayanna Freelon. I am originally from Grenada, Mississippi. I'm currently based in Baltimore, Maryland, and I moved here from Texas. I lived in Texas for 10 years, and I pursued my bachelor's degree from Texas Southern University. I have a bachelor's of arts in music with a minor in theater. And then I moved to Baltimore to pursue my master's of arts in music from Morgan State University. I am a classically trained soprano, so I specialize in opera music, or opera. And I'm also an educator and faculty member at Baltimore School for the Arts.
Thank you so much, Ayanna. Now, Jamiah, would you please reintroduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Jamiah Nash. I'm 24 years old. I'm a singer, songwriter, and actress. I started all of this when I was 5, and I'm continuing to do so. So, yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Jamiah. And then we'll have Kylie. Could you please share a bit about yourself?
Hello, everyone. My name is Kyland Adams. I'm a writer, educator, arts administrator, born and raised in Washington, D.C. I attended Duke Ellington School of the Arts, then I got my Bachelor's of Arts degree from George Mason University. And then I currently work with Kappa, but in addition to Kappa, I also work for Disney Theatrical Group in New York City.
Thank you so much, Kyland. It's a pleasure to have you here. And lastly, before I introduce our last panelist, I would just like to share with the viewers that Aaron is coming to this panel from a business lens, and that's what he will be sharing his perspectives and experiences on this evening during the panel. So Aaron, would you please share a bit about yourself?
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Aaron Richards. I'm 24 years old. I received my MBA and bachelor's from St. John's University in finance and econ, respectively. Currently, I work at Department of Transportation as a compliance officer, Air Force Reserve officer in the logistics field, and I run an online investment company.
Thank you so much, Erin. And just to our viewers out there, I know you all missed our initial introduction. I will say my name is Christina Lyles, and I am your moderator for this evening. Tonight's conversation is just a time to reflect on this difficult and challenging year. By the end of the panel, you will hear how each panelist has persevered and has been resilient through this difficulty and challenging time. And so that's what we've shared. I have already asked each of the panelists to share how they have had to shift their artistic endeavors during this challenging year. And we left off with Kylan, and I'll leave that now to you to share.
Yes, so prior to the pandemic happening, I was working in New York City as the education and audience engagement coordinator. So working with audiences, working with talkbacks, working with students, and really engaging them on our 3 Broadway shows at the time. And then the pandemic happened, and I was working from home for a month, and then I got furloughed. And then a couple of months later, I came back to DC. But for me, in all honesty, it's been such a moment to really focus in on what my artistic craft is. Because prior to that, I was just working anywhere from like 40 to 60 hours a week, just like trying to pay the bills, trying to pay these student loans. And so really coming back home to really rethink like, why am I interested in art anyway, has been great for me. I've been able to team up with some old classmates and begin doing webinars and really begin focus in on my art, creating a blog. And so for me, it's been an enlightening experience for me to really ask myself the question, like, what do I want the future of my life to be artistically? And how do I make sure that I am always tapping into that and keeping it close with me? So having this moment to really redefine where I want to go has been really, really great for me.
Thank you so much, Kylan. I really, really appreciate your response. And so the next question that I would like to ask is, can you share how you best adapted and shifted your artistry and your artistic endeavors during this challenging year? Would anyone like to answer that?
Sure. So since I've been doing a lot of work from home, most of my audition material, obviously, I've had to, record from my house. I've had to learn how to work with pre-recorded tracks. But aside from the whole audition circuit, I've actually been teaching myself how to use the Adobe Creative Cloud. And that's really important as an independent artist because oftentimes we don't have management, we don't have marketing teams. So it's really important for us to be able to know how to present ourselves until we get to the point where, we have management and we have a marketing team. But I've taught myself how to create websites. I do flyers now for myself for the recitals that I've done just recently. I've been able to curate a recital with Kappa, and I created the entire recital and the flyer. And yeah, that's really how I've been able to kind of capitalize off of this time and stretch my other creative muscles.
Well, that's amazing. I'm so happy that you have picked up some new skills. Like you said,
Yeah.
self-management is so important, especially now during this time, to be able to have the skills to, like you said, create a flyer and curate a concert series is just excellent. So kudos to you. And thank you for sharing that, Ayanna. Would anyone else like to share how they have had to shift and adapt?
I'll say something.
Okay, Dean.
So I realized I had a lot more time on my schedule to take classes, to really just build on the skills that I already had. And so what I did was I went a certain direction as far as taking classes with casting directors, because in my mind, I'm saying to myself, if I do that, these guys know me. So by the time we get out of this pandemic, it'll be easier for me to get in that room with them. So I've taken classes. I've basically restructured my brand. I've had a lot more time to really understand who I am as a person, and to really hone my skills and just know what my brand really is. And so that's what I did, was just take more classes and got new headshots. So I will be set. So when the pandemic is finally over, Lord Jesus Christ, everything will be fine.
Thank you so much, Dean. I'm so glad to hear that you've been able to pick up some classes and also learn some new skills and even update your headshots. That is so important nowadays to always have that readily accessible. So great. Would anyone else like to speak on this question?
Yeah, I'd like to speak on it. So prior to the pandemic, I had always had this idea to start this investment company, but being, I guess, always moving, I was going to originally have it with just people I knew. So it was going to really limit me to around, 10, 20 people and then grow from there. Whereas me being at home, having more free time in my hands, I was able to research and find a platform that was open online. And just as I've had more time in my hands, people have as well. So um, we started the business on November 2nd. And since, as of yesterday, we have 3,200 members. So it's actually helped a lot being online. And they're also 50% are in the U.S., 50% are outside the U.S. So just being in this COVID era from a business standpoint has opened up tremendously.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm really happy to hear that you've been able to get your business up and running and to have so many members in such a short amount of time is just amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. Maya or Kylan, would you like to add to this question as well?
I'll add how things have shifted for me. I would have to say that I have to really evaluate if it was something that I truly wanted to do and continue to do because it sounds crazy, but the arts is so up and down already. So to already have something challenging, something that's already a challenge is kind of crazy. So as I'm sitting home and I'm thinking about, is this something that I truly want to do? Like, this doesn't look like it's going to end. Like, a lot of things go through your mind during that time. Um, you settle into depression or you just question a lot of things in life. And artistry is the last thing on your mind. But one thing I will say is my artistry has pulled me out of that depression during that time. So I will say being able to sit and really reevaluate things and see if it's something that I truly want to do, it really did put things into perspective for me.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that. As you know, artistry is definitely a way to keep yourself grounded and to, feed your soul. So I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you for sharing. Lastly, Kylan, would you like to add anything to this question?
Yes, I think for me, kind of going off of what some of the other panelists just spoke about, I think like the actual for me, having the mindset of actually understanding like what's going, like we're in a pandemic, like live entertainment has to stop. We're now moving virtually was for me a mind shift and a mind shift because then my entire job had stopped. So now what I've been given literally 60 hours a week to is now gone. So how can I shift that? And something that I was missing was really engagement with my community, the community that I know. And so my friends and I, like speaking of mental health in April, we realized that a lot of mental health issues that we're not talking about specifically in the Black community and specifically with artists. And so we started doing webinars and that just became something that we just continue to do. We even did something for election night. Like what does the election night mean to us as Black emerging professionals? And so we're beginning to have conversations of starting something. We don't know quite sure, we're not quite sure what it's going to be, but starting something as to give back to the community with a specific focus on those who are Black emerging artists in high school and undergrad who are coming up and we're like, what does it mean to be in the arts? And then also, what does it mean to come from a certain marginalized community in the arts? And what is some extra support that you may have? So that's been like the biggest thing for me.
Thank you so much. I'm really happy to hear that you've been able to collaborate and work with other artists to leverage your artistry and also address some of the concerns in our communities as you shared. So that's wonderful to hear. And that actually perfectly leads me to my next question, which is, how have you been able to perform and or collaborate with other emerging artists during this time of uncertainty?
So for a little while, we weren't really sure what performance was going to look like until I guess the entire classical community got on the bandwagon of using like Zoom and like recording and editing and stuff like that. But I have been blessed with the opportunity to most recently, I think the recital aired in November, but I was blessed with the opportunity to perform in a recital where I had started planning this recital a year ago, and it was supposed to be performed in early February or March, but of course the pandemic happened. But this recital was a joint recital with one of my colleagues from Morgan State University. She's a pianist, and it was to pay homage to Black women composers. And although we weren't able to do the recital in March, it really was kind of a silver lining that we did the recital in October, and it aired virtually November 1st, because we were able to partner with the Howard County Historical Society and do a segment that also paid homage to women's suffrage. So that was a really great opportunity that we both had. And I've also done recitals with some of my other classmates from Morgan, with the Walters Art Museum. But all of these recitals have been virtual. It's been really interesting to work virtually and learn the ins and outs of what it takes to be a classical singer in front of a camera. Like I think there are more things that I have to think about acoustically when it comes to, recording myself and being in front of the camera. So those are some of the things that I've done as a performer recently. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's so refreshing to hear that you've been able to shift what was before into something different. I know virtual learning, virtual performing has been such a curve for us all. I'm sure at this point, most of us are almost experts with Zoom and so many other digital platforms that we have to use almost every day now. So I'm just so happy to hear that, again, you found that silver lining and shifted it. So thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to share how they've been able to virtually collaborate and work with other emerging artists during this time?
I'll speak. Honestly, with other artists, what we piggybacking off what Ayanna said, a lot of it has to do with like Zoom. Zoom has really helped bring people together. I'm very thankful for Zoom because I've conducted stream meetings and recording sessions that we should have been at physically through Zoom. So I will say that, I've done songwriting classes with others, young kids, vocal lessons, all of that with, young adults to little kids, and it hasn't stopped anything. And honestly, Zoom has kind of saved the little things on the side. If I'm not recording something, I'm usually able to do mentoring and teach people through this. So I will say that's the best thing that has ever happened to us with Zoom.
Thank you so much. I definitely can agree with that. Even as we're doing this panel now virtually through Zoom, it's definitely been a lifesaver in so many different ways. So I completely agree with that. Would anyone else like to share how they've been working with other artists and collaborating?
I'll say something. Just like everyone has just been saying this now, Zoom has been our best friend. If it isn't Zoom, it's FaceTime. But I've been able to work with other artists musically through Zoom, get their ideas, throw ideas back and forth, and then we just record on our own, and then we just send them through an email, and then we come right back on Zoom and have that meeting. So that's been, like this video chatting has been the best tool for us during this whole time.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Dean. I can't agree with you more on that. Would anyone else like to share? If not, I will move on to the last question of this first portion regarding COVID, which is, how has this experience shaped your perspectives and your future plans for next year?
I can speak to that. Prior to, as I said, the pandemic, kind of in this cycle of working, going to the gym, coming home, getting ready for work. With this free time on my hands, I've been able to explore other avenues. And the goal now is to bring in enough revenue to where I don't have to go back into the office. So for next year, the plan is to work for myself and explore other avenues of revenue to where I go from working for somebody to working for myself.
That's awesome. I love the sound of that. But thank you so much for sharing that, Aaron. I think that it's excellent that you have created this business that you've been wanting to do, and now you're looking forward to just taking on full entrepreneurship in a full-time role. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to address this question?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So the question is, how has this experience shaped your perspective and future plans for next year?
Okay. So this experience within the pandemic, spending so much time by myself alone, has really given me the opportunity, as I stated earlier, to really reflect on the kind of artist that I want to present myself as for the future. And my prayer is that all of this work that I've been doing, preparing, I took a step back from the audition circuit. I mean, I did a couple of auditions, but I really wanted to take this opportunity, because it's a rare occasion that working artists have the time to even just like practice every day, schedule voice lessons, schedule coachings. It's a rare occasion that we have time to do all of that and work our full-time day jobs. I still, have my obligations for the school that I work for. So my hopes is that all of this work that I've been doing, like wood shedding and spending all this time by myself preparing, I'm actually, ready for some of the bigger opportunities that will present themselves once, the performance world reopens. And I do believe that it will reopen, because so many people are just like itching to get outside. I even found myself reflecting a couple of times, like, wow, I will not miss another opportunity to go to the Kennedy Center, because so many times I'm like, oh, I'll catch the next show. Oh, I'll catch the next show. But now, having that medium completely taken away from us, and all we have is the TV to see live performances, it's really been, kind of depressing. So I know if I'm feeling this way, then the rest of America, the rest of the world is feeling the same way. So as soon as, the vaccine or whatever, the pandemic, or we've learned to live with this new virus, people are going to be flocking to performance halls to hear live, music and live art. And I want to be ready for that. And so I certainly hope that more artists are taking this time. I know we feel very depressed and sad that our community of workers have just kind of been shut out. But at the same time, we have so much time to just find peace, and really think about how we want to brand ourselves, what aspects of our personal lives do we want to take onto the stage with us. Like, I'm very passionate about history. I'm very passionate about Black composers. So I really hope to be working with young, new, vibrant composers, do some new music, new, classical works. Hopefully there's some conductors out there who are just as passionate about Black opera and want to put, productions together. I would love to be a part of those conversations and those communities who are really looking to push, Black composers and the classical music forward.
Thank you so much for your response, Ayanna. You raised so many great points. And I just really appreciate your perspective on this question. One point, as you mentioned, that I think is very important is that, yes, we have all been itching to just get back out there and just jump right back into our many different endeavors and, so many things that we were involved with.
Right.
People will begin to turn back to the performing arts spaces once things get, like you said, recentered again and we're back on track. So I'm very hopeful about that. And I hope people are also expecting that, there is going to be a turning point and things will get better. So thank you for sharing that. Ayanna, I want to just read the question one more time before I frame it to our last three panelists, which is, how has this experience shaped your perspective and your future plans for next year? Dean, would you like to add to this question?
It's definitely, I guess I can say, I feel like the things that I've done during this pandemic between between June and August, that has set me up for the things for next year. I think I went into this, and I can, congratulate. I can even say thank you to one of my friends, because he and I had the same idea to, just prepare ourselves for when, everything is over, everything will be set up. Our mindset back in June was, we're going to be out of this in September or October. Nah. So it's just having done those things, I feel confident enough to know that everything will be okay. It just takes time. It just takes patience.
Thank you. And that is definitely the truth. I'm really happy to hear also that you prepared yourself in a way that when things reopen, you'll be ready to just get back to it. So that's really hopeful. And I'm hoping that a lot of our artists have spent this time to reflect and just kind of get themselves together for that reopening. So thank you, Dean. Jamiah, would you like to respond?
Honestly, I have to say everybody kind of hit the nail on the head for me. I agree with everyone. It is very, very not. I don't want to keep saying the word depressing, but it kind of is that when you can't go to a live show. And I was just watching, I believe it was the AMAs not too long ago, and I got really, really sad. Like a time where it's supposed to be exciting, I got really sad because we saw no one in the audience. Everything was so like rehearsal. It looked like rehearsal. And I just got really sad because I was like, the excitement of seeing this stuff on TV is not there anymore because we know what it is now. It's just another way to kind of cope with the fact that we can't physically be at these places. So my biggest thing I will say for next year is to just, take those opportunities when things do open up. Because I'm not going to say if. I am really hoping that, it's very different because 2020 has not been very nice. She's been very, very rude. So I'm hoping 2021 is exactly what I think it will be.
I am with you. I'm hoping that with you. I'm hoping that 2021 will be a year of turnaround for us at some point. I know we'll still be working through some things, but I'm hopeful as well. So thank you. And lastly, Kylan, how about you? Would you like to add to this question as well?
Yeah, I can add something. I think, again, just echoing the panelists, I think the biggest thing for me is never taking anything for granted. No opportunity, no artistic opportunity. I also was someone that there will be a show and I'm like, I'll have time to see that show. I don't need to rush and go see it now. Like the meme says, outside isn't going anywhere and look at outside, it's gone. So I think for me, it's been like this thing of just trying to make sure that even in this moment, I'm taking advantage of every opportunity. But I think what gives me hope that the live entertainment field will come back, and hopefully better than ever, is like there have been so many innovative things that have came out of this. Like this has really forced a lot of companies, a lot of networks to be more innovative in how they're producing shows and how we're reaching artists and how we're reaching consumers and audiences and audience members. Some my only hope is that we just continue with that as we move forward, and with the election, all the things that are happening, well, with our new president-elect and all the things that are happening, it's very hopeful that things are going to not get back to normal, but they're going to be better than normal. And we're going to really be a part of bridging the gap and building what that can be. So for me, it's just like really trying to remain hopeful that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. And I think, like you said, it is so important that we just take advantage of each and every opportunity that is presented to us. Because in these days and in life, I think it's really showed us that you can't take things for granted, and you have to go after it when it's presented to you, and just not, take it for granted. So I completely agree. Thank you so much. And so that wraps up the first portion of our panel. And so the second portion really focuses on social justice, and it also delves a little into politics and the arts. That being said, I wanted to set the scene with this statement. Many artists create work that intersects with political activism and social justice causes. Throughout history, art has been used as an accessible tool for communication, raising awareness about social issues and affecting positive change. This year was a year of many major shifts that took place in our society, including COVID-19, the stance against police brutality, and even the presidential election results. And so my question is, how have you lent your artistic voice during this time?
I'll go first. So I've talked about the recitals that I've been curating with Kappa. And I think that outside of my actual performing, I'm more of a behind the scenes kind of person. I like to be a part of the major project for social change or justice. So I've been working with Kappa. I will be the project manager, one of the project managers for their upcoming series entitled Generations, Music in the Black Family. But aside from that, in the educational sector, I really do enjoy helping my students learn how to organize. That's become something that really does bring me great joy to really assist them, because they, aside from myself being the voice of millennials, their generation went Z, and they're the younger generation, and it's really exciting for me to help them learn how to express themselves through their art. I'm currently one of the advisors for the Black Student Union. That is something that I've been working with for the past 2 years. I was the sitting advisor when the union was first thought of, I suppose, at its inception. I was there through the entire process, teaching the kids how to organize for themselves, how to advocate for what it is that the student body needed, the Black students that attend Baltimore School for the Arts. So I also participated in, so I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I really did participate in some of the marches that happened in Baltimore when George Floyd was murdered. And those one of the biggest marches that happened was organized by my students. So that really gave me a lot of joy to see them putting the tools that I gave them and the things that we talked about in school, on the pavement. So I could really into grassroots work. That's kind of my thing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I'm really inspired to hear that you have already started the process of sharing that information and providing youth a platform to share their voices and, stand up for what they believe in. So that is really, really great for me to hear, and really refreshing as well. So thank you, Ayanna, for all of your continued work. Erin, would you like to share on this question from a business aspect?
Absolutely. So from the business aspect, as it pertains to me, when the pandemic first hit, there was a huge devastation economically. So the stimulus was given under the CARES Act. So the CARES Act was a $2 trillion relief act that provided funding for large corporations, stimulus, which we know of the $1,200, airlines, a whole bunch of people, but there was a large portion of that went directly to businesses. A lot of people, primarily in the African American community, weren't aware of this billions and billions of dollars that was available to them. So once again, being home, I was able to do research on that I wouldn't have probably been able to do if I was in the office, and learn how to do those loans that turn into conditional grants. So when that hit, I started doing PPP loans for small business owners, primarily African Americans, and those loans turned into conditional grants. So whatever your income was for 2019, you're able to receive 2.5 times your monthly revenues. So I did about 10 or 11 PPP loans for African American small businesses, and on the loan side, first it turns into a loan, and now those funds have been used. I'm now doing the grant aspect of it, where you submit all your documentation to submit for the grant aspect of it. So just trying to put money back into the Black community. One thing that a lot of people don't know is that African Americans, we contribute $1.2 trillion annually to the U.S. retail economy, but only account for 13% of the U.S. population. So putting dollars back into our hands is very important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Aaron. And I really appreciate the work that you have been doing for our Black communities from an economic standpoint. I am so happy to hear. It made my heart glad that, some of the loans that you were talking about, you were able to make them grant opportunities versus the loan.
They were all grants. They're called loans, but if you have your documentation in order, primarily your Schedule C, showing your income, you can apply for conditional grants. So all of them have been submitted for grants.
Well, that is excellent to hear. And I'm sure such a blessing to those who've been able to benefit from the opportunity. So again, just thank you. And thank you for your focus on pouring back into our communities from a financial aspect. It's very important. And we all know that we can't survive without money. So thank you for that. How about Jamiah? Would you like to share your perspective on how you've been able to raise your voice against some of the things that have been going on during this year from an artistic standpoint?
I'm gonna be honest with you. With COVID, of course, kind of everything was so abrupt. Honestly, it's not like, well, for me, let me say that, because everybody says, oh, it's been talked about for a couple months now, and then, but it really hit the fan when when your boss comes in and you're sitting at your desk and they just come to you and they're like, hey, you gotta go home. And it's like, it's a shock, because it's like, okay, I gotta go home, but this bill is due today, so what you mean I'm going home? So it was kind of a shock for me, because I do artistry, but I also work a regular job, because at the end of the day, you need a backup plan, and I try to do both. So not having that job and being laid off for the first time in my life, I was actually very scared and confused, because I didn't know what to do, honestly. So with the whole, unemployment thing, where, they put the, $600 on top of, the regular unemployment, it definitely helped, which kind of brings me back to what I said. Opportunity definitely came up in the face of adversity, because I was able to acquire a new home, a new apartment for myself, which I was never able to do before then. So I do feel like with COVID stepping in and doing what it did, it definitely gave me a place of my own, to where I could actually be very creative. I was never really able to be super creative in the places that I was in before. So COVID gave me the opportunity to do that, with me having my own place. In regards to the Black Lives Matter and all of that stuff, I didn't really participate in any of those things. I hate to say that, because I am a Black female and I should have taken part, but honestly, it was a scary time, and I don't like to dabble in things that I'm not really educated in. So I definitely feel like me going out there and protesting for something that I'm not truly knowledgeable about would have put me in a situation where I would have to speak up for myself and I would not know what to say. So I honestly kind of just prayed in the safety of my own home, and definitely was sending love and light towards the people who are actually out there fighting for their lives and fighting for us, the people that did know. So I definitely commend those that were out there doing that.
Well, I really appreciate your response, Jamiah. I think a lot of people have those same shared feelings. While you have those out on the forefront, you also have those who are maybe a little bit more reserved, but also
Mm-hmm.
advocacy in their way, whether it's on their social media page and they're resharing or they're reposting something that is in solidarity with the movement, or they're sending up prayers or whatever it is that they do, just to show their respects. I think that every little bit counts. So I really do appreciate your response and your honesty and your perspective regarding this. And before I ask Dean and Kylan, I just want to re-ask the question just so you all have it fresh on your brains. And the question is, how have you lent your artistic voice during this time?
So I'll say that I haven't really been able to use my voice in an artistic way to help this situation, whatever. But from another standpoint, I'm in the fraternity Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, and one of the things that we have is called a voteless people is a hopeless people. And what we do is, and so that basically means, just trying to get people to vote and talking about this this election, how important it was and how many people were not registered to vote, or who were registered but just never voted at all, or people who just aren't really educating themselves, or who aren't knowledgeable about really what's happening. So my chapter, we really focused on getting people, like more people, registered in this area. We're in the Montgomery County chapter. I mean, in the Montgomery County area, that's where we really focused. But also, since I do live in Prince George's, I reached out to people that I knew were not registered at all, and just trying to do my part.
Thank you so much, Dean. I really appreciate you being a person who was out there getting people registered and signed up to vote. As you said, this was definitely an important election for us during such a difficult year. So thank you for your work on that. I really appreciate it. And lastly, Kylan, would you like to address this question as well?
Yeah, I like to think that for the most part, I've always been kind of politically and socially aware and involved. I actually started in theater because I was a part of this devised theater group, which was creating plays for social change. And so it's been something since I was like 11 or 12 years old that I've always been a part of. But this year in particular, it was interesting being on furlough when all of the civil unrest happened, because the company that I worked for had furloughed 98%, 99% of the Black employees. So when it came time to having a Black voice, they actually came to us. And so we're furloughed, and they try to frame it like it wasn't working, but they asked us and we kind of pushed for us to have a kind of a statement of solidarity, a statement to say like what's happening, which prompted a lot of different conversations in regards to how that company specifically has kind of upheld white supremacy. And so there were a lot of conversations in regards to like the mission statement for that organization is engaging the widest and the most diverse audiences possible. And then we kind of put that question back to them, like, have we been doing that? Have we been doing that with the art that we have on stage? Have we been doing that with the creatives that we've been hiring? Have we been doing that with the staff that we have backstage? Have we been doing that with their admin team? So I think for me, specifically because I do have the opportunity to work with a lot of predominantly white organizations. Even till today, something that I will continue to do in meetings is kind of push that, like, we're not going to stop having those conversations about racism. We're not going to stop having those conversations about why people from marginalized communities, specifically Black people, are not allowed in certain spaces, specifically when it deals with live entertainment and the arts. So it's something that I continue to push, and it shows up in different ways, whether that's working with an organization, going back and doing device theater around the civil unrest that happened, or whether it's working with different companies as they begin to build their fellowship and internship program, really going like, okay, now who are you hiring and why, and what does your applicants look like, and what schools are we looking towards? I will share, like, there was a recruiter for the company that I work with who did not know what HBCUs meant. So they never like took applications from there. And so when you hear that you don't know what HBCUs are and you're a recruiter for a really big organization, it's like, wait, what? So like, those are some of the things that I have to like kind of, with a team of people, I would say, like a lot of colleagues who have been doing this prior to me, who are really like, okay, let's look at our applicants and like, let's begin to really be more specific at what schools we're looking at. So that's one way in which I kind of like use my art and my art administrative skills and duties to kind of help with that conversation and dialogue.
Wow. Thank you so much, Kylan. I really appreciate your response and again, the work that you have been doing to educate those who are just misinformed or misguided in some ways. And I really appreciate you being on the forefront of representing us in the way that we should be. So thank you so much for that. And I do have one more question regarding this portion of the panel. And it reads, what are you hoping for from the new presidential administration regarding their support of the arts?
I can speak on the business side. So from the business side, I really hope while the administration, Biden's putting together a great team in terms of cabinet members, a lot of the same players that Obama had in the Obama administration. I really hope that they, actually put policy over politics. He's spoken a lot of great points in his campaign about things that he wants to change, but one of the big things that I'm looking at is student loan debt. They halted student loan debt. The current administration halted student loan debt until the end of January. It's now January 31st, but Biden has the opportunity to abolish student loan debt, which is currently at $1.6 trillion. And they gave out $2 trillion to large corporations, businesses. So it's really political. Another thing, they're getting ready to release this next round of stimulus, and they're still fighting to see whether or not they're going to give $1,200 or $600 to individuals when large corporations received millions and millions of dollars. So there's a reason for that. There's a lot of money to go around, but there's a lot of politics that go with it. So just hoping they put the policy over politics.
Wow. Well, I am standing in solidarity with all of those who are looking to abolish student loan debt. Thank you so much, Aaron, for your response and just educating us a bit on the business aspect of what you're hoping for. I really appreciate that. Would anyone else like to share or add from an artistic standpoint? Dean, please share.
Yeah, I'll say, so when I was in college, for one semester, I was a music education major. Then I switched it right back to piano performance. But because I have two parents who are now retired, who were in the education system, my mom was a principal and my dad just finished being a music teacher. I've been in the school systems where these students have old robes, they have old instruments that are broken, and I would hope that his administration finds a way to put more money in the arts, because it is therapy. A lot of people, I feel like there should be a lot more people majoring in music therapy when they get into college, because it definitely does help, and it's a different part of your brain that you have to reach, and it does take a certain type of person to really hack into that talent.
I really appreciate your response, Dean, and I agree that the arts, not even specifically music, the arts in general can be a very therapeutic outlet for so many people who have so many different needs and ailments that can use those tools to really find them as a point of healing. And also just to help them kind of just recenter themselves and refocus and let out some of the energy, whether it's trauma, whether it's, excitement, it allows them to do that. So I absolutely agree with you. And I would love to see also more funding go into the schools in support of the arts for our youth. Would anyone else like to address the question? Ayanna?
Okay, so this might be a controversial opinion, but I don't personally believe that it is the administration's job to save, our communities. I believe that it is our responsibility mostly to save our communities, whether it be music, performance, the Black community, all of those things. I mean, of course, you're always going to need advocates and you're always going to need people who are going to rally behind you and really be allies for whatever it is that your particular community wants to bring to the forefront. But I really seriously believe in grassroots work. So my personal hope is that, the Black community really begins to value the importance of the arts in our own communities. And I really, I really hope that we begin to hold politicians and hold administrators accountable for the things that they have promised our communities and the things that they have said they're going to, give to our communities. Because of course, politicians are going to say whatever it is that will get your particular community to rally behind you. But if no one is holding them accountable, if no one is hitting the pavement, hitting the streets, really like going and getting, having their voice be heard, like what we're doing now, so many different artists have moved into this virtual setting and began holding conversations and began like creating alliances that advocate for what it is that we need within our own respective art form. We need more of those types of groups to be established so that policymakers can see that our art form is just as important as the STEM field. Our art form is equally as important as literature and art. I mean, literature and history and chemistry and all of those things that our children have to learn in public school education. So that's just my little tidbit. I did vote, but I'm just saying.
Ayanna, I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
You said in the beginning, you said that we should be more responsible, and then you also said that the politicians should be responsible. Which one?
No, I said that we hold a responsibility to our own communities, and it's up to us to hold those policymakers, those administrators, the superintendent, the mayors of your cities, your councilmen. It's our responsibility to hold them accountable when they make these promises to our community because they want our votes. So we also need to, once they're in office, hold them accountable. Do you hear me?
What are your thoughts on lower socioeconomic areas that aren't even aware of the opportunities afforded to them in their council members and congressmen and things like that? I'd say that's directly
Absolutely. But how many people have come out of those communities who have left those communities and abandoned their communities? It's their responsibility. It's our responsibility. We come from these communities. Why do we leave them, once we've gotten to our degrees, we've gotten to whatever it is, whatever, social standard for our lives, and we never go back and we never advocate on behalf of those who don't have a voice for themselves? It still lies within us because they're like the schools that I work for, the school district that I work for, Baltimore City Public School, is one of the largest school districts in the state of Maryland, but it's completely some schools are so underfunded, they're getting shut down every single school year. And it's partially because we have people from the community who, of course, they don't know that they need to advocate for themselves, but we have people like myself and my coworkers and other local Baltimoreans who need to advocate for those schools, and we need to advocate for our school districts and our kids.
I agree.
I, I, I was gonna say, but like that also goes into
stirring the pot.
No. You are definitely not. I was gonna say that definitely hits the big picture right now to me, how we need to educate the people in our communities to vote for these local legislators and these, like, I mean, because I feel like all we learn in general school, to me, it just seems like, hey, vote for the president and vote for the vice president, or just whatever, like Democrat, Republican. That's what we're taught. We're not taught to vote for your local your local school
Yeah,
district,
absolutely.
your mayor, So I feel like a part of what you said, we have to also come out and talk to our brothers and sisters and say, yo, bro, sis, please educate yourself on this person, because because whether you like it or not, these are the people who are your biggest advocates in your
Absolutely.
community. Yeah.
We just have so many organizations that, come out and tell these communities, yeah, go and vote, but that's it. There are people within our community who have power, who are affluent, who have education. It's their responsibility to go back to those areas that are not, equitable, and share their knowledge and share what it is that needs to happen, so that, children are able to, receive the same kind of, or the same kind of responsibilities as every other kid in, well, for me personally, from Maryland. And I'm not even from Maryland, and I advocate for my kids all the time, and kids who don't even go to Baltimore School for the Arts, because, to be honest, it really is one of the most affluent schools in the district. But even within my school, I'm advocating for kids who don't even have like equitable opportunity to audition for the school. I'm advocating for us to do runouts at elementary schools and middle schools that are in low income areas, so that they can see what it is that they can be. If it wasn't for us, me, my coworkers, though, people going to administrators and saying this is what we need to do, they would never think of it, because it's not really their responsibility in their heads. I don't say that to be disrespectful, but that's kind of how it comes off.
Well, I appreciate everyone's response. I really also enjoyed the fruitful conversation that we were able to just exchange with one another. I think that that's why it's so important that we have this space, that we as the uprising generation can share our thoughts and our perspectives about many different things, and also educate each other and support why we feel this or why we feel that. So again, I just appreciate that healthy conversation that we just had. So thank you all. And that being said, I'm just now going to transition into our next portion, which is also our final portion of the panel, which really focuses on next steps, and also focusing on what are the needs from some of our seasoned professionals in our various fields. And so the first question is, going forward, how can seasoned artists lend a helping hand to emerging artists?
Easy. Mentor. Literally. Mentor. I mean, I feel like, if they do that and show and actually guide them on how to maneuver on their journey, it could be a little bit easier for them, instead of them trying to have to figure it out, and then it takes even longer, and then it's just, then it becomes a little bit of a mess, and then they recover, and then it just keeps going back and forth. But the long and short of it, just to mentor. I feel like mentorship is the best tool for the younger generation, that the older generation, I would say, should do.
I totally agree. That's what I was going to say, mentorship. A lot of the opportunities, a lot of the things that I've been able to accomplish in my career have been large in part to my mentors putting me in a position, or putting me in the direction to do it. And so I'd say, in terms of lending a helping hand, I'm now transitioning into a part of my career where it's my turn to extend a hand back down. So we, as 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 individuals, we continue to extend the hand back down and pulling people up, we can all succeed.
I completely agree. I think mentorship is so important, and similar to the conversation that we were previously having, it's important to pay it forward. As someone has paid it forward for all of us to be where we are in some aspect of our lives, whether it was a teacher, a parent, a mentor of whatever sort, and mentorship is very important. Kylan, would you also like to add to this question?
Yeah, I definitely agree with mentorship, and I think allowing people into the room, and not just allowing them into the room, but a seat at the table, and then having them like express their voice at the table is always helpful. I also think that just thinking about like even like from the conversation you all had prior to this one is like a lot of stuff is systemic, and so when talking about the arts and providing access, is a lot of it is having to rethink how do we dismantle the systemic systems that keeps people of color, specifically Black people, from engaging with the arts, and whether that's performing, whether that's working with them, or even just coming to a show. And so how do we look into that? And I know that there's a letter going around. I'm not quite sure if everyone saw it, but it's a letter going around signed by people that's asking for Biden and for Harris to kind of put together a Secretary of Arts and Culture. And like many different people are like signing it and saying like there needs to be a need for someone to have a cabinet level position there that's really looking over arts and culture. I'm not quite sure if they're going to do it, but if they do it, I think that they need to have someone who is a person of color, specifically someone who is Black, and someone who is from a Black organization. Because I think that is one way that you move the conversation forward and move arts forward, is having people who have been marginalized a chance to not only sit at the table, but build the table. So that's what I'm hoping for, is like mentorship, but also for people of color, specifically Black people, to be allowed to start building what this can look like in the future.
I absolutely agree. And I would hope that that is something that would be able to come into fruition, is that, like you said, more people of color coming into leadership roles, just to be able to push forward some of the needs of our community that have just really been going unmet for so long. So I really appreciate your response. Ayanna, would you like to add to that?
Sure. So, aside from like mentorship, which I think the Black opera community is really, I guess, trying to center around now more than in years prior, I think that there needs to be like a prioritization of historically Black colleges and universities, because I'm like, both of my degrees are from HBCU, so I'm gonna advocate for HBCUs to the day that I die, but there's just a lack of like support from the classical community with HBCUs. And I will say that I'm very thankful for Kappa, because Kappa started a masterclass series where they invite classical singers to different HBCUs and they give masterclasses. If it had not been for Kappa, then I would have never met some of the opera singers that I know today. I would have never been introduced to like real-time advice, in this career field. And it's partially because a lot of HBCUs just don't have the funding to bring the artists. So if Black classical artists were to prioritize the schools that don't have the funding to really, typically afford the master classes, I think you would see you would definitely see an influx of Black classical singers. You would definitely see like, I guess more students coming out of the programs who can actually access, young artist programs, because they have the tools that they need to succeed in the art form. Because as quiet as it's kept, and I guess it's not really that quietly kept, classical music is expensive. From paying for voice lessons, to paying for vocal coachings, to paying for auditions, to paying for accompanist fees, to paying for everything. It's an expensive career to, embark on. And if more classical singers were to step out and be like, okay, I'm gonna give you some advice on how to get there. and I'm going to come to your school, even though your school doesn't have the funding to really afford my fee, and, you know, share that. I really feel like that would make a big difference. So shout out to Kappa for starting the masterclass series.
Yes, a big, huge shout out to Kappa. Thank you for all that you have been offering to our youth, as well as even our seasoned professionals. So, and also thank you, Ayanna, for your response. I really appreciate it. And now I'm going to move into our final question. I know we've been on for some time now, and I have really enjoyed hearing all of you all's perspectives and responses. And so I will end with this. How will you ground yourself using your art form in the next year?
Well, I'll go. Oh, go ahead. Who was
Go
that,
ahead.
Kylan? Aaron, go ahead.
No, you please. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I want to say that through this pandemic, I feel blessed that my art has kept me grounded in moments where I didn't know if I was going to have a job or know, you know, both my parents contracted COVID, and my sister and my god sister and a couple of my family members. So in those moments where I just did not know what the status of even my parents' lives was going to look like, art and music and being able to sing has really kept me grounded, and like living up to the promises that I've been, you know, I guess gifted, has really kept me grounded. So I pray that I keep this, you know, humble spirit and going forward into the next year, and always trying to look with the, you know, the glass half full and keep the positivity. But yeah,
I'm happy to hear that, Ayanna. And I'm so sorry to hear about all the challenges and adversities that you've been faced with personally.
yeah.
So I'm glad that you've been looking to your creative forms for some energy and positivity. So thank you. Dean, would you like to share?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
Yes. So the question just asked, how will you ground yourself using your art form next year?
How will I ground myself? Just being consistent, I would say. Consistency is would be the best thing for me, and I would presume that it would be the best thing for everyone. Just keep your heads up. Just keeping our heads up, but staying optimistic about everything, knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, I would say, and just keeping the faith. I mean, I'm you know, a Christian, so I have kept the faith this whole time, just knowing that, you know, for me, God had my back. He did this for a reason. He did it for me, just to sit me down and to re-evaluate everything that I need to do for myself. So yeah, just being consistent.
Thank you for sharing that, Dean. I really appreciate your response. So thank you. Aaron, how about you?
I say the way that I'm going to ground myself in this upcoming year is to not put limits on my abilities. With the business, as I said, I originally planned to just do it in the DMV area, to where now it's global. And so I've been faced with a lot of questions in terms of the business that I never thought about and have even shied away from, in terms of the direction I go in. One of which I was faced with this past weekend was, do I want to be registered as a C Corp or an S Corp? And that would really determine long term whether I'd have shareholders, how other people can invest in my business. And this has been something that, like I said, I'd never thought of. I was just gonna invite some friends and hopefully grow from people telling each other. Whereas now, there's been no limit to the size of the business. So continuing never to doubt myself, and as well, also, you know, keeping God first. You know, in His Word it says, "Man plans his way, but the Lord directs his steps." So allowing him to direct my steps and go as far as I can.
Amen. I really appreciate your response, Aaron. And I hope that we all can take on that perspective of not putting limitations on ourselves, but we just continue to push and, just lean on to whomever you believe in. For some of us, that is God, and just, continue to just press forward in the midst of it all. So thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Amen.
And lastly, Kylan, would you like to share?
Yeah, I think for me, just staying grounded means, like I said earlier, like prior to COVID, like I was just working to get up the next day and go upon my schedule. But I think now making sure that I'm always close to my artistic things that I do, whether that's writing, whether that's directing, whether that's acting, and making sure that I'm close to it and making sure that it's something that I am consistently working on, that I'm consistently going to professional developments about, that I'm consistently working on my craft just for me. And then if I can find a way to make that profitable, then doing that, but making sure that I'm not so wrapped up in just like paying bills that I forget the reason why I chose to go into the artistic life in the first place. So for me, it's just continuing to remember why I chose this, and then every day getting up and remembering that why.
That's so important. Remembering your why is very important. And I just want to say thank you to you all for just being open, being transparent during this panel. Again, I have truly just enjoyed listening to everything you all have shared and said during this time. So again, congratulations to you all, and shout out to you for just being a part of this journey with us. I also want to say thank you to Kappa for allowing us this space as young artists and emerging artists and young people and our different perspectives, to just have a safe space to share how we feel and learn from each other and hear each other out. So thank you. And now I believe, actually, before we go to the outro video, I would like for each panelist to share where they're from. If you would like to share your contact information as far as your social media handle, you can do that as well. So I will first start with Kylan.
Yes, again, my name is Kylan. I'm from Washington, D.C. I can be found on Instagram and Twitter at Kylan Justin. And then if you're new to like Clubhouse, I can be found at just Kylan.
Thank you so much, Kylan. Ayanna?
All right. Again, my name is Ayanna Freelon, and I am originally from Grenada, Mississippi, and I am currently based in Baltimore, Maryland. If you'd like to follow me on Instagram, you can. It's _Ayanna Freelon, or friend me on Facebook. Also, my first and my last name, very simple. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Ayanna. And Dean?
Hey everyone, I am Dean Johnson. On Instagram, you can follow me at I am Dean Johnson. And on Facebook, just a regular name, Dean Johnson.
Thank you so much, Dean. And lastly, Aaron.
I'm Aaron Richards. I'm from Upper Marlboro, Maryland. If you'd like to know more about stocks and option investing, you can follow me at ITF_investments. That's ITF_investments, and everything's free.
All right. Thank you all again so much for sharing your perspectives and your insight during this time. I also want to say thank you to our viewers who tuned into tonight's panel. We appreciate you for watching us just have this live conversation. You can follow us, I believe, on @4Kappa is the Instagram name. And Kappa can be found also on YouTube as well as Facebook. Again, this conversation was just a time for us to reflect on our different experiences and perspectives from this difficult and challenging year. Our next panel is scheduled for Tuesday, March 2nd. So we will be into the third month of the new year. We hope to see you there. We'll be at 7:00 p.m. Eastern, and it will more than likely be live streamed again as well. So thank you all again. And now I will turn it over to Jay, our tech person, for our outro video.
I would like to say thank you to our moderator, the panelist, executive director, and chairperson for providing such a rich and open dialogue. The panelists have truly provoked great thought and hopefully further conversation. I'd like to also offer a special thanks to all of our viewers for sharing in this moment. Thank you. and have a wonderful evening.